Hello and welcome to this video. Today we are going to talk about the buy and sell zone algo trade. I'm just going to walk through the configurations to bring everyone up to speed as to what these settings do. Then I'm going to go over how I like to use it. Okay, so if we just run through these one by one, the first one we have the software keys. This is a private key that you were sent when you signed up at Pipnotic. Then you have your algo execution interval, and this is simply telling the software how often to run the algo, and I limit this to 5 seconds, so every 5 seconds it runs, but that's quite a lot. You can also reduce this to 60 seconds, for example, because it doesn't need to run every 5 seconds. So just reducing this, or rather increasing this number, limits the clock cycles of the computer, and so you're not going to bog down your platform, which is generally a good idea. Then we have the time frames, and time frames are pretty interesting. This robot is pretty interesting in that it can trade different time frames at the same time. And so out of the box, I've set it to trade the currently active chart, and so the max and the minimum are both set to current. But let's say that you want it to just scan different time frames on that chart. Then you can say, okay, well, I want to look at the daily chart, and then all the way down to the 50-minute, and then it's going to scan all time frames on all symbols and find entries for those. But as you can see, they can get pretty noisy, and so I just like to slow things down a little and put it on current. But you can try that out just to experiment and see, just to see what that does. We have a max slippage setting, which is 0.5 pip. We have max spread, which is 2.5 pip. And then here we have the risk parameters. This is 0.5%. Maximum risk, we have lot size. If you set this to a value like 0.01 and you set this to 0, well, then it's going to only trade micro lots, and it's not going to calculate 0.5% of your account and trade that per position. Just as a nice way to ensure that you're trading small if this is what you wish to do. We have we have max lot size here, and if you want a certain lot size to be kind of the ceiling for your positions, and you can set them in here. For example, if you were only looking to trade mini lots and less, then you can just set that mini lot setting in there like so, and that will do that. And we have max positions per pair, so it's only going to open one trade per one limit order per currency pair. And then we have max positions per currency. This is very high. This should be a lot less, maybe around 2. I just had this set to 20 for testing. And this is just telling the robot that we only want to trade 2 currency pairs, where, for example, the American dollar is a part of that pair, just to limit our exposure to individual currencies. Then we have this setting here, and this setting is good because it tells us that, for example, assuming that we did an analysis one morning and we opened a bunch of trades, pending orders, sometimes we just want to flush all of those out so we can start our analysis fresh. And setting this to true will delete all of the pending orders that the algo opened historically. We have some filters. We have positive swap only. This is only going to trade in line with the positive swaps that have a minimum swap of -5. You can set this to 0 if you don't want to pay swaps at all. It's up to you. Then we have stops and targets. So if we look at this example, this area of supply here, what the robot is going to do, it's going to take the size of this area of supply, it's going to multiply it by 2 for the stop. So the stop will be, the entry will be here, and the stop will be 2 times this, so 1, 2. So the stop loss will be up here. And the same for the target. So the target will be here, it'll look at the size of the stop, and it'll multiply that by 2, 1, 2, and this is where the target will be. So you can set that to whatever you like. If you want a greater risk reward, then you can also modify the target multiplier to reflect that. Then we have supply and demand. Enable slingshot mode. This is interesting. This is set to false by default, but if this was set to true, what it's going to do, it is going to put the entry not at the edge closest, the edge of the box closest to price but furthest away. So it's going to assume that price went down, the slingshot was pulled back, and then we release. So it's going to put the entry at the top of the box here for supply, and it's going to put it at the bottom of the box for demand. And this is just to get those slingshot entries, should you choose to do that. And the good thing about doing that is you're going to get very good prices, but you're going to lose out on a lot of trades as well, because we're not going to get to that price point, we're going to stop somewhere in the area of supply and demand and then turn around. We have start bar, so assuming you have a bunch of bars here you want to jump over, you can just set this to, for example, 20, and it's going to count 20 bars in, and then it's going to start the analysis from example here and go this way. So if there are a bunch of insignificant swings or supply and demand areas here, you can force the software to move past those to begin its analysis. We have our risk to reward ratio. This just tells us how we qualify this area of, for example, supply. We want price to have moved 2 times the size of this box away from the box within 3 periods. As you can see here, max accumulation, this specifies how many periods of sideways price movement we want at the area of supply and demand. The lower the number, generally the better the areas, but 5, you don't want to go over 5 because then you have considerable sideways price movement at an area in supply or demand. This is generally bad for the likelihood of the level holding in the future. Then we have multiple tests. So assuming that price came down here, we left, we pulled the slingshot back, and then we left. If multiple tests is set to true, then it'll allow this area to be traded again, providing that it has not been removed. Setting multiple tests to true will enable that. And then we have number of periods until expiration. If you set this to 2 and the trade is open on the daily chart, it'll set the order to expire after 2 periods if it has not been filled. Rectangle line width, that just defines how thick this rectangle should be. We have trend lines, enable trend lines, this is set to true, as you can see down here. We have the width of that trend line set to 2, enable auto trend lines, this is set to true, and the swing point significant, this is set to 5, so it's looking for swing points to have 5 bars on each side that are either lower or higher before it qualifies swing points. So this is going to be qualified. Swing point that's like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is not going to be qualified, and so it's going to look for some very significant swing points when it's looking for trend lines, qualifying trend lines. And this enable trend line extension, this just tells the software to extend the trend line into future. Instead of drawing it as an array like from here to here, then it stops. It's just telling it to extend the trend line into the future. Okay, if we continue, and then we have the colors. Okay, these just represent all of the colors for all of the time frames. And then the last setting is the magic number. This tells the robot which trades it has opened. So if you want to have 2 different or 3 different instances of the robot running with 3 different configurations, then each configuration needs its unique magic number, and you can just do that by modifying this value to whatever, it doesn't really matter, like so, for example, and that will tell the robot not to fiddle too much with, rather not to fiddle at all with the other instances trades. Okay, so how I'm using it is that I have it open like so. I have my price chart here, and then I have my algo chart over here, and I have nothing on this chart. There are no indicators attached to this chart. Okay, and over here I have my supply and demand software with the same configuration as the robot, and I have a histogram below. Okay, but you can pretty much do whatever you want on this price chart, but this is the setup that I like to use. Sometimes I'll use this configuration where I have I have a configuration like this where I have 3 instances of the GFX running. The thick line is 200 period. Then I have 2 other instances. This is the 50, and this one will be 1 thickness, and this just shows me the different currency strengths with different lookbacks, and so I have a very profound insight into what these 2 currencies are doing relative to one another. Okay, so I have this on this side over here, and I have the robot over here, and if I like what the robot is doing, is showing me, well, then I'll just flick it on and tell it to take the trade. So if we just go to an example here, just to find something to show, I'll just flick it on. Here's the area that it's qualified. The currency strength will flick on in just a second, and it's showing me very clearly that yes, we should indeed be selling the euro Australian dollar, but I think maybe this is just a little bit too small, a little bit too tight, this stop. So what I'll do is I'll just widen that. I'll say, well, I want 2 times the size, like so, and then I'll just flick the robot on by pressing auto trade. Then it'll open the trade here, as you'll see in just a second. There we are. So now we have our trade on. Yes, risking a little bit there, and then that's pretty much it. And then I go to the next one. I turn the robot off, and I'll go to the next one. I go, for example, to the euro Japanese yen. Let's see what's going on there. If the robot finds something it likes, which it does at the top here, well, I'll say, okay, well, I want to take that trade then. Then I'll just turn it on, and then the robot will open the trade. But I just like this one here. So this is a discretionary position. I like this one here, which is closer to the price than the one at the top there. Okay, so that's what I'm doing here. If you have any questions about this, please post them in the Discord channel. I will add the supply and demand robot, the buy and sell zone algo-trader Discord channel. I'll create that in a second, so you can post your messages in there. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thanks very much for watching.